When was the last time you were truly bored? Not scrolling, not multitasking, just sitting with nothing to do. For most of us, boredom feels like a failure. But what if it's actually the beginning of something remarkable? When your mind runs out of distractions, it starts searching for meaning. That restless feeling is your brain asking, what am I doing with my life? Neuroscientists have found fascinating insights into what happens in our brains when we're bored. When you're bored, the brain's default mode network lights up, the same region active during daydreaming and creativity. It's the mental space where your mind connects random memories, forms new ideas, and imagines futures. Einstein called it the time when my best ideas find me. But we've built an entire world to avoid boredom, constantly filling every pause with distractions. Every pause is filled. Notifications, playlists, updates, reels. We scroll through timelines, refreshing for likes, instead of pondering the stars. The result? We've lost access to the creative stillness that used to live in silence. The irony is breathtaking. The more we avoid boredom, the more we feel unfulfilled. When every second is occupied, there's no room for wonder. Researchers now suggest something radical. Schedule boredom. Embrace it. 15 minutes a day. No screens, no music, no multitasking. Just let your mind wander. In that stillness, your brain begins to ask the big questions, the ones you've been too busy to face. What do I really want? Who am I when I'm not productive? Boredom isn't laziness. It's an emotional compass. It points you toward what your attention truly craves. So the next time you feel that emptiness creeping in, don't fight it. Sit with it. Listen, because in a world addicted to noise, being bored might just be the most rebellious thing you can do. Let's explore a powerful concept: why randomness is intelligence in motion. In 1905, Albert Einstein explained Brownian motion, detailing why pollen grains jitter on water. This raises the question, should our minds, when seeking truth, sometimes embrace randomness? Decades later, physicists at Los Alamos, facing impossible nuclear calculations, used a gambler's trick, Monte Carlo. They leveraged random sampling to uncover the shape of the answer. When should chance steer our choices? Here's the big idea. Randomness isn't chaos. It's a powerful search tool. This counterintuitive concept suggests that adding a little noise can actually make systems smarter, not dumber. How does this work? Randomness means outcomes have no fixed, predictable pattern. Used strategically, it can break us out of ruts, what scientists call local minima, traps where a good enough solution prevents us from finding a truly better one. Algorithms mimic cooling metal, a process called simulated annealing. They add noise early on to explore a wide range of possibilities, then gradually reduce it to settle on a strong, optimal answer. This concept isn't just theoretical. It has profound real-world applications across various fields. Since Darwin, evolution has shown us how random mutations, coupled with natural selection, create new traits. Without this inherent noise, life's ability to adapt would be severely limited. In 1998, Google's PageRank algorithm used a random surfer model, treating a user as if they jumped between links by chance. This mathematical approach to wandering effectively ranks pages by their importance. Randomness also acts as a safeguard for truth. Randomized controlled trials split patients by chance, ensuring that differences in recovery reflect treatments, not hidden biases. Similarly, A/B tests in business use random assignment to determine which products genuinely succeed outside of a meeting room, making causation clearer. So how can we integrate this powerful principle into our daily work and decision-making today? Think like a scientist. Start wide, exploring many possibilities, then narrow your focus to find the best solution. Early on, introduce structured randomness. Seek out new inputs, engage with new people, and explore alternative routes. This helps break free from conventional thinking. Brainstorm with unusual prompts, read academic papers outside your field, or briefly rotate projects. This noise initially expands your options. From pollen and burn to dice at Los Alamos, what appears as aimless motion is, in fact, intelligent exploration. Randomness is intelligence in motion, helping us escape our own certainty and discover paths we never knew to search. Stay curious, add a little noise when you're stuck, then listen for the signal. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to be luckier than others? It's not always about chance. Today, we're diving into why serendipity loves motion. Think about Alexander Fleming's discovery of penicillin. It wasn't just luck. He was in motion, with countless trials and constant curiosity. Serendipity found him mid-experiment. This is the hidden rule of life. Fortune favors movement, not meditation. Stillness breeds control, but motion breeds collision, the starting point for major discoveries and unexpected opportunities. The big idea is that serendipity isn't random. It's a probability function of motion. You can't plan lucky events, but you can engineer their frequency. Each movement you make, whether physical, social, or intellectual, creates more nodes in your personal network. These nodes increase the chance of meaningful overlaps between your curiosity and the world's randomness. It's like walking through a rainstorm. The faster you move, the more raindrops you meet. You can't predict which one becomes a breakthrough, but you can make sure you're out in the rain. History is filled with examples of serendipitous discoveries. Let's look at a few well-known cases. Steve Jobs audited a random calligraphy class, motion outside his lane, and Apple's iconic typography was born. He wasn't planning it, but his movement created the intersection. Jonas Salk discovered the polio vaccine while wandering through an art institute, inspired by color theory. His intellectual motion in an unrelated field sparked a life-saving breakthrough. Reed Hastings founded Netflix after being fined for a late blockbuster rental, a tiny act of annoyance that turned into a global disruption. None of them sat down to find an idea, they simply moved. The opposite of serendipity isn't bad luck. It's stagnation. When you stop moving, your world stops intersecting with the unexpected. When you repeat identical loops, same routines, same faces, same thoughts, you starve yourself of collision energy. Curiosity decays in closed systems. Motion, however, reintroduces entropy, the necessary ingredient for creation. It breaks patterns and allows new connections to form. Don't over-optimize your life. Treat every micro-movement as a lottery ticket for insight. Walk a new route, talk to someone new, try a new tool. In an age of algorithms that predict everything, motion is the last frontier of genuine surprise. I can optimize, but only you can wander. Think of it this way. Still water reflects perfectly, but it never travels. Flowing water looks messy, but it carves canyons. Serendipity is motion meeting meaning. So keep moving. Not because you know where you're going, but because somewhere out there, luck is looking for you too. Stay in motion. That's where the magic hides. Let's deep dive into Ikigai, a powerful philosophy that's often not well understood. Explore why Ikigai isn't about finding balance, but rather achieving true alignment in your life. Ikigai, roughly translated, is your reason for waking up in the morning. It's not just a goal or a passion, but a fundamental direction of being. In Okinawa, one of the world's longest-living communities, there's no word for retirement. People live with purpose, guided by their Ikigai. Western self-help often depicts Ikigai as 4 overlapping circles, but the true Okinawan spirit emphasizes a single, flowing line of energy. In post-war Japan, Ikigai became a philosophy of reconstruction. Purpose was rebuilt from small things: crafting, helping, fixing. It's grounded, not grand. The big idea: Ikigai isn't about balance, it's about coherence. It's not doing many right things, but one thing rightly aligned. Fulfillment doesn't come from juggling multiple tasks, but from the singular focus of an aligned purpose. Think of your life as 4 strands: love, emotion, craft, skill, connection, world's needs, and continuity, what you can get paid for. Ikigai twists them into a single, strong rope. Let's look at some examples that beautifully illustrate Ikigai in action. A craftsman in Naha, carving wood daily for 40 years, finds his work to be his rest. It doesn't tire him, because it is his Ikigai. Marie Kondo built a global business from one gentle act: folding clothes with respect. Her success stems from this single aligned purpose. Toyota's Kaizen culture, with its small daily improvements, embodies Ikigai thinking. Excellence not as competition, but as devotion. The Western trap is optimization, trying to adjust every circle until they overlap perfectly. But Ikigai isn't a formula. You can start from any corner of your life: love, skill, need, or pay, as long as you keep turning towards the other 3. The journey itself is the alignment. When what you love teaches what you're good at, and what you're good at solves what the world needs, you stop switching lives between weekdays and weekends. So how can you find your Ikigai today? It doesn't require quitting your job or moving to Japan. If you feel lost, don't look for passion. Look for continuity. What do you do that quietly refuels you, even when it's hard? Follow that thread. Strengthen that thread daily. Ikigai requires removing conflict from within your work, achieving seamlessness. Balance asks, how do I manage life? Ikigai asks, what lets life flow through me effortlessly? Twist your threads together. Stay aligned, not balanced. That's Have you ever wondered if there's a limit to how much happiness money can buy? Let's explore the invisible ceiling of happiness. In 2010, Nobel-winning economists found that for Americans, happiness plateaued at roughly $75,000 a year. Below it, money improved life. Above it, happiness stopped rising. This suggests a truth modern culture often avoids. There's a point where more comfort no longer feels like more life. Initially, money is a clear measure of success, providing essentials like food, freedom, and dignity, which are crucial for well-being. But beyond that basic need, money starts to buy comparison. Each extra dollar doesn't just expand your options, it shifts your expectations. You adapt, you upgrade, and call it progress. Psychologically, this is the, quote, hedonic treadmill, running faster just to maintain the same level of feeling. So what truly happens when wealth grows beyond your actual needs? Once survival is secure, money stops being a shield and starts defining you. You're no longer seeking peace, but rather proof of your standing. The pleasure from luxury fades with familiarity. The first business class flight is euphoric, but by the 10th, it's just normal. The brain recalibrates, turning luxury into the new baseline. Paradoxically, with more wealth, anxiety can increase. Every new option gained also multiplies what could be lost. Freedom without simplicity becomes a cage with invisible bars. It's important to clarify. Money absolutely can buy happiness, but only up to the point where it removes friction from your life. It can purchase time, health, and autonomy, all proven happiness multipliers. However, once these are stable, each additional unit of income adds less joy per dollar. Economists call this diminishing marginal utility. Philosophers call it the tragedy of enough. Because humans are wired to chase just one more step, the real turning point isn't economic, it's existential. After your needs are met, happiness shifts. It's no longer about what you have, but about who you are when you're no longer needing. This is why even billionaires still meditate, chase purpose, and build foundations. At the peak of wealth, they face the same question: what now? They rediscover that happiness grows from alignment between what you earn and what you mean, what you spend and what you stand for. The world constantly tells you to climb, but true happiness might be found by stepping off that treadmill and walking intentionally. Money is a tool, not a teacher. It can fund comfort, but never meaning. It can extend your life, but not your aliveness. If you want to feel truly wealthy, count what you wouldn't trade for cash: your peace, health, curiosity, and sleep. These are the currencies that never devalue. Have you ever wondered why some problems seem to get worse the more you try to fix them? Today we're diving into a fascinating concept that explains just that: the pendulum effect. Introduced by physicist Vadim Zeland, this idea suggests that problems aren't just obstacles, but pendulums, invisible energy structures that thrive on your emotional reactions. The more you fight, the stronger they become. Think of a pendulum. The harder you push it, the harder it swings back. When we wrestle with worries, argue mentally, or replay conflicts, every thought becomes a push. Instead of fading, the problem feeds off our intense focus. This concept mirrors the, quote, ironic process theory in psychology. The more you try not to think of something, the more your brain brings it up. For example, try not to think of a pink elephant. Impossible, right? When you mentally fight a problem, you're not just engaging with it, you're energetically feeding it. Every argument, complaint, or obsession creates a resonance loop, a self-sustaining system of attention. Here's the counterintuitive trick: don't fight the pendulum. Instead, step aside. Imagine a Newton's cradle. If you don't engage, it eventually slows. When you stop feeding attention into the problem, it starts to lose mass. Your indifference breaks the energy loop, allowing the problem to naturally diminish. Zeland called this leaving the pendulum to swing without you. Modern neuroscience refers to it as deactivation, where your emotional system stops giving a trigger meaning, calming the amygdala and restoring clarity. This principle isn't just theoretical. We can see it in action across various real-world scenarios. Consider Mahatma Gandhi. By refusing to meet British force with violence, he collapsed their moral narrative. He didn't feed their pendulum. He withdrew his engagement. In martial arts, a master doesn't meet force with force. They step aside, allowing the attacker's energy to undo itself. Withdrawal, not resistance, is key. Most problems aren't trying to be solved, they're trying to be noticed. Once acknowledged without obsession, they often dissolve into perspective. It's a powerful realization. Many of our problems simply want our attention. Once that attention shifts, their grip loosens. This is why people say, sleep on it. Distance resets perception. What felt like a crisis yesterday becomes obvious today, not because it changed, but because you stopped feeding it. Next time a problem grabs your mind, don't fight or fix it immediately. Instead, practice energetic economy. Pause. Observe it like you'd watch a pendulum swinging. Let it lose momentum on its own. You'll notice a strange silence growing where chaos once was. This isn't avoidance, it's energetic economy, choosing where your attention lives. Attention, not action, is the real currency of control. Not everything deserves a fight. Some things only survive because you keep arguing with them. The moment you stop feeding your problems, they stop being problems and start becoming information. Walk past the pendulum. Let's deep diving into a profound truth. Why purpose often hides in repetition and is the path for true growth. In an age obsessed with the new, true mastery whispers a different secret. It's not about novelty, but about the quiet paradox of repetition. Consider the 75-year-old Kyoto potter who shaped the same bowl for 50 years. His wisdom? He stopped making bowls years ago. He's been learning to make this one right. This anecdote reveals a powerful truth. Mastery doesn't hide in constant change or novelty, but in the dedicated act of repetition. Repetition, when approached mindfully, isn't stagnation. It's a form of compounding awareness, where each loop deepens understanding. The core message from great artists, scientists, and monks echoes through time. Stay, repeat, refine. This is the path to true growth. Each repetition, when done with attention, reveals smaller imperfections, deeper truths, and a quieter, more profound control over your craft. History is rich with examples of individuals who mastered their craft through the power of repetition. Da Vinci painted the same faces endlessly, not copying, but calibrating. Each stroke was a refinement, a deeper understanding of form and light. Thomas Edison's 1,000 failed bulbs weren't failures. They were repetitions, each one narrowing down to the truth through exclusion. Athletes repeat motions until muscle becomes memory, and Buddhist monks trace sand mandalas daily, not to finish, but to learn to let go. But here's the twist. Repetition only transforms when done with awareness. There's a crucial difference between mindful and mindless routine. Mindless routine is death. Mindful routine is rebirth. The same daily act can either numb you or enlighten you, depending on your attention. The difference isn't in the act itself, it's in the attention you bring to it. That's where true transformation begins. When you stop running from boredom and embrace it with curiosity, boredom turns into depth, and purpose begins to reveal itself. You start to hear details others miss, and the quiet rhythm of repetition becomes a path to profound understanding. Instead of asking what next, ask what again, but better, repeat one act you care about, noticing one new thing each time. The rhythm of mindful repetition creates flow, and flow is where purpose lives. It's the world's oldest algorithm. Try, observe, adjust, repeat. Think of it this way. A wave looks repetitive, but every crest is slightly new. A sunrise looks identical, but no color ever repeats exactly. Repetition is how the universe perfects itself. Your purpose isn't waiting in a new place. It's hiding inside the one thing you keep returning to, asking if this time you'll finally notice it fully. Stay with your repetitions, for that's where meaning sharpens into purpose. Thank you for joining Hidden Patterns of Life. Why some people who know the least act the most confident, and those who know a lot often doubt themselves? This paradox, discovered by psychologists David Dunning and Justin-Kruger in 1999, is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It highlights how easily our minds confuse clarity with certainty, leading us to believe we know more than we actually do. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a mirror, reflecting how easily our minds mistake simple understanding for complete knowledge. Every journey of learning often starts with a surge of overconfidence, a stage we call Mount Stupid. A little knowledge can create a lot of enthusiasm, making you feel like an expert on Mount Stupid. a peak built on thin knowledge. But reality soon reveals the complexity, and you tumble into the valley of despair, where awareness grows faster than skill. This valley, though painful, is where genuine growth truly begins. It's the point where most people quit, mistaking humility for failure. In this valley, your awareness of what you don't know grows much faster than your actual skill, leading to frustration. Here, you stop being in overconfidence and start earning competence. You shift from "how do I look smart" to "what am I missing?" Beyond the valley lies the slope of enlightenment, and eventually, the plateau of sustainability, where true knowledge and humility meet. The slope of enlightenment is a path of steady, quiet, and unglamorous improvement, a continuous journey of learning. Finally, you reach the plateau of sustainability, where your growing knowledge is balanced with a profound sense of humility. The Dunning-Kruger effect also has a twin, imposter syndrome. Both are signs that learning is in progress. Every expert you admire has experienced this pattern, falling off Mount Stupid at least once. While Dunning-Kruger makes beginners feel like masters, imposter syndrome makes masters feel like beginners, a sign of true depth without overconfidence. This pattern plays out in many aspects of life, from startups to careers to relationships. Humility isn't weakness. It's the calibration tool of intelligence, teaching us the true cost of leadership and the moving target of human empathy. If you feel lost or uncertain right now, that's good news. It means you've entered the valley where wisdom truly grows roots. Don't rush to climb back up. Sit there, learn, unlearn. The slope ahead may not be glamorous, but it's real, leading to genuine growth. Remember, feeling like an imposter means you've graduated from Mount Stupid. You're not falling behind, you're finally getting real. Have you ever wondered about the true cost of playing it safe? Today we're diving into why regret often stems from the paths we don't take. Mark Twain famously said, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did. A powerful truth about our future selves. We often equate safety with success, stable jobs, predictable paths. But in exchange for this safety, we sometimes unknowingly trade away our aliveness. Psychologists call it the inaction effect. In the long run, we regret decisions never made more than bad decisions we actually took. Time always favors motion over stillness. Fear, while protecting us from embarrassment, quietly steals our future self. It holds us back from experiences that could define our journey. Twain wasn't advocating for blind risks, but a calculated drift. Learn to steer after you leave the dock, because waiting for certainty means staying forever on shore. Think of Darwin, Earhart, or Jobs. Each started by cutting the, quote, rope of certainty, leading to groundbreaking discoveries and innovations. Today, ask yourself, what would my 20 years later self thank me for? Safety or attempt? Just loosen one bowline, tilting towards wonder instead of comfort. Life's trade winds never blow from the dock. The world doesn't punish those who risk. It forgets those who don't. So go on, explore, dream, discover. Let's dive into a profound insight from entrepreneur Naval Ravikant, why life is a single-player game. This simple statement captures a truth many spend decades resisting. We often play as if someone else is keeping score, but this reminds us that the only true rival is the person we were yesterday. From childhood, we're conditioned to perform for others, parents, teachers, bosses, and even social media followers. We start measuring ourselves by comparison, not by our own direction. The problem is, this external scoreboard constantly moves. Here's the first key realization. There's no one to fix but yourself to improve. This isn't self-criticism, but self-responsibility. Growth truly begins when blame ends. Life often feels multiplayer because attention creates the illusion of an audience. Social media especially amplifies this, turning our lives into a stage rather than a personal journey. But when you zoom out and truly reflect, you realize the truth. When you close your eyes, no one else's mind is logged into yours. Every decision, regret, dream, and discipline happens within your own consciousness. The more time you spend trying to control other players or seek their approval, the less experience points you earn in your own level. Your journey is uniquely yours. This is why great minds consistently turn inward. They understand that true clarity and growth come from within. First, read. Reading saves you from ignorance, expanding your perspective and filling your mind with new ideas and knowledge. Next, write. Writing is a powerful tool to save yourself from confusion, helping you organize your thoughts and gain clarity. Finally, reflect. Reflection saves you from the constant noise of the world, allowing you to process experiences and cultivate inner peace. Clarity is the ultimate high score. Playing a single-player game doesn't mean isolation. It means you learn from others, but you don't live through them. As Warren Buffett wisely said, look first for someone both smarter and wiser than you are. You absorb lessons from these mentors like power-ups, not as prisons. Their wisdom serves to elevate your own journey, not to dictate it. So what does this mean for today? It means mastering your own game by continuously upgrading yourself. Treat every interaction you have as a side quest. Temporary, helpful, but never the main plot. Your main story is always you versus the person you were yesterday. Continuously upgrade your awareness, refine your inputs, and level up your patience. These are the internal metrics that truly matter. When the credits roll, it's your own self-conversation that will echo. So play well, play consciously, and stop waiting for permission to press start. Mastery is an internal journey. Have you ever felt stuck, wishing you could rewrite parts of your past? Today we explore why true redemption starts not at the beginning, but right in the middle of your story. As C.S. Lewis wisely put it, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. This powerful truth applies to us all. We all carry moments that feel permanent. Failed exams, hurt friends, paths not taken. We replay them, hoping regret can rewind time, but it can't. The truth is, there are no clean slates in life. There are only continued pages, waiting for your next chapter. History never restarts. Instead, it redirects. The past is fixed. The only variable left is what you choose to add next. This is precisely why redemption rarely starts at the beginning. It begins in the middle, right after the loss, the mistake, or the silence. The turning point isn't, why did this happen? It's what happens now. This shift in perspective is crucial for moving forward. Psychologists call this cognitive reframing, meaning replaces memory as the driver of action. The event doesn't change, but your relationship to it does. Let's look at some powerful examples of individuals and even nature itself demonstrating this principle. Thomas Edison famously failed thousands of times. He didn't erase his past. He expanded it until his failures became mere footnotes in his journey to success. J.K. Rowling faced a dozen rejections before Harry Potter. Every no she couldn't erase became an integral part of the beloved story we now know. Even nature follows this law. Forests regrow not by erasing fires, but by rooting through their own ash, transforming destruction into new life. You don't need to start over. You need to start again, but with newfound wisdom from your experiences. The past is data, the present is code, and the future is your output. Each element plays a vital role in shaping your journey. Write one better line today. Send that message. Learn that skill. Forgive the past version of yourself. That's not erasing your story. That's editing it forward. Every regret holds unspent possibility. Stop staring at the beginning, and you'll realize the ending was always yours to author. Every story worth telling truly starts twice. Once when life begins, and once when you decide to begin again. Let's explore why we can't trust our own eyes anymore. We live in an age where what you see isn't always what you get. The digital world is evolving, and with it, the truth is becoming harder to define. The rising threat of deepfake technology is changing how we perceive reality, making it increasingly difficult to distinguish what's real from what's fabricated. The old adage, seeing is believing, is no longer a reliable standard in our digital age. Deepfakes challenge our most fundamental assumptions about visual evidence. Deepfakes have come a long way. From simple noticeable fakes, they've evolved into something far more insidious. We are now seeing sophisticated, almost undetectable forgeries. These aren't just minor alterations. They are complete reconstructions of reality. Artificial intelligence has democratized this technology, making it accessible to anyone with a computer. The barrier to creating convincing deepfakes has virtually disappeared. But this isn't just about fun filters. There are serious real-world consequences to this technology. We've already seen examples of deepfakes causing widespread misinformation, sparking panic, and even leading to harm. It's a digital weapon. The impact ripples through politics, journalism, and personal lives, eroding trust and sowing discord. What can you believe when even the news can be faked? This brings us to a profound cognitive crisis. How do we navigate a world where visual evidence is no longer reliable? Deepfakes erode our trust in visual evidence, making us question the authenticity of everything we see online. It's a fundamental challenge to our perception of truth. The challenge lies in discerning truth from fabrication, a task that becomes increasingly difficult as deepfake technology advances. Our brains are simply not wired for this level of deception. Imagine a world without definitive proof, where every video, every image could be a fabrication. The implications of living in this simulated reality are vast, affecting everything from legal cases to historical records. The simulation is already here. This demands a new level of critical thinking and media literacy from all of us. We must learn to question, to verify, and to analyze. So what can we do? The first step is simple. Pause. The next time you see a video that shocks you, pause. Don't share it immediately. Because the real threat isn't just that someone might lie. The real threat is that the lie might look exactly like the truth. This is not a political problem. It's a cognitive crisis. Are you prepared to live in a world without proof? Stay tuned for more insights as we continue to explore the complexities of our digital future. Thank you for watching. Have you ever wondered why life sometimes feels like a constant battle of wits? Let's dive into a theory that explains just that. In 1950, two mathematicians at Princeton began to build a theory to explain how nations compete, how lovers fight, and how markets crash. This groundbreaking framework, born in a smoky Princeton office, would forever change our understanding of strategic interactions. Its central idea was both genius and terrifying. If every player acts rationally for themselves, the system as a whole may collapse. It all began with John Nash, the brilliant mind behind A Beautiful Mind. Nash saw that life isn't random chaos, it's strategy. Each of us is a player, predicting what others will do and adjusting our moves to gain an edge. In theory, if everyone reaches perfect prediction, the game stabilizes. That's a Nash equilibrium, where no one can improve without hurting themselves. But in reality, this often leads to a competition that feels like slow-motion self-destruction. The most famous example is the prisoner's dilemma. Imagine two suspects in a crime. If both stay silent, they walk free. But fearing betrayal, both confess, and both lose. This is the classic trap of rational players making collectively irrational choices. This isn't just philosophy, it's the logic of our headlines. Arms races, price wars, political standoffs, all fueled by the same trap. The real danger isn't the math. It's when we start believing everyone must play this way. When enough people think that trust is foolish and cooperation is weakness, the model becomes the world. Markets pricing greed. Nations build for deterrence. Even friendships can become subtle negotiations of gain and loss, eroding genuine connection. But game theory also explains why peace is possible. If self-interest can destroy balance, it can also create it. When the cost of losing rises high enough, stability becomes the rational choice. This is why nuclear powers avoid direct war, the equilibrium of mutual assured destruction. It's a fragile peace, built on fear, yet in its own cold logic, it works. Here's the paradox. Game theory assumes perfect rational minds. But humans aren't rational. We're emotional, biased, sometimes beautifully irrational. That's what keeps systems alive. Love breaks equilibrium. Empathy rewrites payoff tables. Altruism resets the game. Without these, we'd be locked forever in loops of retaliation and mistrust. So the next time you see chaos, in politics, economics, or even at your dinner table, remember this: it's not chaos. It's a series of games. Each player thinks they're the clever one, all running at once. But the smartest move may not be to win, it's to change the rules. Because the most dangerous games aren't those we lose, they're the ones we forget we're still playing. Imagine a checkout page, a 90% discounted price, a bright deal timer with dripping seconds. You feel a tug before you even think. This is where our brain's shortcuts meet algorithmic traps. That tug is a cognitive bias, our brain's shortcut for deciding fast. Today, these ancient shortcuts are being met by sophisticated systems built to steer them. Let's delve into the fascinating science behind these cognitive biases that influence our daily decisions. Cognitive biases were first mapped by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, who identified dozens of predictable tilts in human judgment. These biases aren't flaws, they're evolutionary advantages. Our ancestors needed speed over perfect accuracy to survive in the wild. But the wild has changed. Our decisions now live within algorithmic habitats, feeds, stores, dashboards, and recommendation engines. These systems observe our patterns and learn how to nudge us. Anchoring becomes a pricing lever, availability, a headline factory, and confirmation, a narrow content funnel. Information was once scarce and slow. Then mass media accelerated it. Now attention markets weaponize it, optimizing for every single click. Behavioral designers know we overreact to losses twice as hard as gains. They use microsignals like hover time and scroll velocity to turn every bias into a dial they can control. So is the theory of biases wrong? Not entirely, but parts of it are too simplistic for our current digital landscape. The neat split between fast and slow thinking often blurs. We frequently rationalize our decisions first, and then reason later. While heuristics are smart when the environment matches the cue, our current environment has become adversarial, actively working against our natural decision-making. The solution isn't just to redesign the human, but to redesign the algorithmic habitat itself. We can implement speed bumps for irreversible choices, expose base rates, batch notifications, and use pre-commitments like cooling-off timers. Crucially, we need to teach meta-bias, to ask, which shortcut is being pulled here, and by whom? The checkout timer isn't just counting down your chance to buy, it's counting up the cost of unconsciousness. Our biases helped us survive potential threats. To survive the feed, we need a new reflex. That reflex is to pause, name the nudge, and choose on purpose. This is how we regain control in an algorithmic world. What is privacy, and why is it disappearing so fast? Let's explore this critical question. Every second you spend online, someone, somewhere, is recording it. Not your face, not your voice, but something far more valuable, your behavior. We once thought privacy meant four walls and a locked door. Today, it means almost nothing, because privacy isn't just about who sees you, it's about who predicts you. That behavior you exhibit online, that's the real currency of the 21st century, and it's called data. Here's the paradox. The systems built to personalize our world now learn us so well, they can outguess us. Google finishes your sentences. Netflix picks your moods. Even your phone knows when you're anxious from how hard you tap. Every click, pause, location, and heartbeat becomes a data point, a breadcrumb in a map of you. But this erosion didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process. In the early 2000s, social networks asked us to share voluntarily. Then smartphones made it constant. Every convenience, from GPS to smart assistants, came with an invisible trade, access for data. It wasn't stolen, it was offered freely, enthusiastically, and companies learned that the more they knew, the more they could shape. Not just ads, but opinions, elections, emotions. Data became a powerful tool for influence. The Cambridge Analytica scandal showed that privacy isn't a right being taken, it's a resource being mined quietly, legally, endlessly. The uncomfortable truth is that privacy didn't die, it was priced. Free apps weren't free. I agree became the most expensive phrase online. And while we fought for data protection laws, algorithms evolved faster than regulation ever could. So what happens next? What does the future of privacy look like? Maybe the next revolution won't be about freedom of speech, but freedom of silence, a future where anonymity becomes a luxury. Where people pay to be forgotten, where privacy isn't the default, it's the upgrade. Because your data is gold, and gold is never left unmined. Remember, your data is a precious commodity in the digital age, a resource constantly being sought after. Join us next time to explore why we'll soon need digital IDs for our digital selves, the hidden life of algorithms, and if technology can ever make us truly anonymous again. Every time you unlock your phone, ask Alexa a question, or check your steps, you're being watched. But here's the twist. You're not just accepting it, you're paying for it. From smartwatches to doorbells, we've willingly traded privacy for convenience, one tap at a time. Surveillance used to mean suspicion. Cameras, guards, government control. Today it means convenience, and we subscribed willingly. The shift began quietly. In the 1990s, data was a byproduct. By the 2010s, it became the product. Every app learned not just what you do, but who you are. Your likes, sleep, mood, and pulse became inputs in a trillion-dollar feedback loop. The more we shared, the smarter the systems got, and the smarter they got, the more we shared. It wasn't forced. It was gamified. The irony? We thought we were buying technology, but technology was buying us. That smartwatch tracking your heart rate, it also tracks your habits. That fridge that orders milk, it knows what you eat and when you're home. The camera that keeps you safe, it also keeps you predictable. Somewhere along the way, privacy stopped being a right and became a setting buried in menus most people never open. We didn't lose privacy in a war. We lost it in small trade-offs, disguised as upgrades. But here's the deeper paradox. Surveillance isn't only about control. It's about certainty. Companies, governments, and even we, as individuals, crave prediction. We fear the unknown, so we built machines that see it for us. We want to be understood, and that desire makes us transparent. So are we doomed to be watched forever? Maybe not. Every technology begins as a miracle, becomes invisible, and ends up questioned. People once feared cameras, then forgot them, then fought back with consent laws and encryption. The same story may unfold again, but only if we remember that privacy isn't about hiding. It's about choosing what to reveal. Because the most dangerous surveillance isn't the one that spies. It's the one that feels like love. Every time you unlock your phone, walk through an airport, or even glance at a camera in a store, something remarkable happens. Your face stops being just a face. It becomes math. Facial recognition doesn't see you the way a person does. Instead, it transforms your unique features into data. So how exactly does this transformation happen? It all begins with a detailed mapping process. The system traces over 80 landmarks across your eyes, nose, lips, and jawline. It meticulously measures the distance between your pupils, the curve of your cheekbones, and even the shadow beneath your chin. All these measurements are then converted into a long string of numbers, creating what's called a, quote, facial signature. It's not your photo that's stored, but rather a unique mathematical formula. At its core, facial recognition relies on the principle of pattern recognition, similar to how humans identify familiar faces. Just as humans recognize friends in a crowd, machines do it by comparing geometry, shapes and ratios, not smiles and expressions. They analyze the mathematical patterns of your face. But there's a key difference. Where humans rely on memory, algorithms rely on probability. They don't say this is you. They say, this is most likely you. This subtle distinction holds both power and potential danger. The journey started with a prototype in the 1960s, taking hours to process one image. Today, powered by deep learning, a single neural network can analyze millions per second. Here's the paradox. The better it knows us, the less invisible we become. Being seen and being known are no longer the same thing. Cameras in airports and streets now scan faces not just for identity, but for behavior, emotion, and even intent. This goes far beyond simple identification. Governments claim it's for safety, companies say it's for convenience. Both are true, and neither is the whole story, as there's a hidden cost to this pervasive tracking. Behind every recognition event lies a crucial question. Who owns the data that defines your face? Unlike passwords, you can't change your face. Once it's mapped, it's permanent, an immortal key that can unlock or expose your digital self. Facial recognition was built to make life easier. But it also built a world where being seen and being known are no longer the same thing. Your face, turned into math and memory, has become your passport to the future. But in that future, anonymity may no longer exist. How does a piece of glass and metal read the rhythm of your life? It sits quietly on your wrist, glowing, blinking, listening. Yet in every second, your smartwatch captures something intimate. Your heartbeat. We're diving into the fascinating technology that allows your smartwatch to monitor your heartbeat, silently working to keep tabs on your health. The secret lies in light and blood. This ingenious method is known as photoplethysmography, or PPG. When your heart beats, blood rushes through your veins, absorbing green light more than red. The tiny LEDs under your smartwatch flash dozens of times per second, while sensors measure how much light bounces back. More light reflected means less blood in that instant. Less reflection means more. From this flicker, your smartwatch reconstructs your pulse, every rise, every fall. But your watch doesn't stop there. It measures subtle variations between beats, what doctors call heart rate variability. Those micro gaps between pulses reveal stress, recovery, or even early signs of illness. Combine that with motion sensors, temperature shifts, and oxygen readings, and suddenly your wrist becomes a personal medical lab. Here's the paradox. The more we miniaturize machines, the more they magnify ourselves. In 1958, the first pacemaker was the size of a brick. Today, a chip smaller than a grain of rice can monitor the same signals, continuously, invisibly, and personally. However, like all technology, smartwatches have their limitations. They're not perfect, and there are challenges that need to be addressed. Sweat, tattoos, and motion can confuse the sensors. Algorithms constantly learn and improve to provide more accurate readings. They're not listening to your heart directly. They're painting it from reflections of light, pulses that paint your heartbeat. We once needed doctors to tell us how alive we were. Now we can see it in real time, glowing back at us from our wrists. Stay tuned for our next teasers, why your phone camera knows more than you think, and how future wearables could read emotions, not just vitals. How machines learn to see our imagination and show you exactly what we pictured, pixel by pixel, in seconds. This isn't science fiction. It's the reality of diffusion models. AI-generated images are rapidly transforming how we visualize ideas. With advanced algorithms, artificial intelligence can render your imagination into stunning visuals almost instantly. The magic behind this technology lies in what are called diffusion models. These powerful AI systems learn to generate images through a unique iterative process. AI-generated images don't begin as pictures. Instead, they start as pure noise, random static, much like an untuned television screen. The algorithm, trained on billions of real images, systematically removes this randomness. One microscopic layer at a time, it refines the noise into structure, shapes, light, and texture. The process is akin to watching order emerge from chaos, as imagination is precisely rendered by complex mathematical computations. Diffusion models work by learning the intrinsic patterns of our world. They don't just copy reality, they learn its fundamental rhythm. This includes understanding how eyes reflect light, how skin folds under a smile, or the subtle way cities glow at night. The AI deciphers these intricate details. When you input a prompt, the AI doesn't retrieve a stored image. Instead, it dreams statistically, blending patterns from millions of examples to create something entirely new. The result feels magical because it's the closest thing to human creativity we've ever been able to program into a machine. Yet, a profound contradiction lies within this magic. AI creativity is not without its complexities and philosophical questions. Every AI-generated image is a sophisticated remix of what humanity has already created. Our art, photos, and stories are dissolved into a data soup, reassembled by machines. The algorithm doesn't truly understand beauty. It simply knows how to generate something that looks beautiful, based on its training data. This brings us to a core philosophical question of our age. Can imitation ever truly become imagination? Or is it merely advanced mimicry? Ultimately, AI serves as a powerful mirror, reflecting not just our technological brilliance, but also our inherent biases and values. It recreates faces that never existed, cities that never stood, and emotions that were never felt, bringing to life vivid illusions. In doing so, it exposes what we truly value: symmetry, youth, familiarity, and a relentless pursuit of perfection in our visual culture. It's not merely teaching machines to see, it's revealing what we've been seeing and valuing all along. Soon you might describe a memory you never had, and AI will show it to you in perfect detail, blurring the lines of reality. When that happens, we'll need to ask ourselves, are we using machines to expand our imagination or to simply replace it? Every image AI creates begins with noise, a reflection perhaps of our own human endeavor to make sense of chaos, one pixel at a time. Let's deep dive into how AI companies are quietly becoming the world's new empires. In 2025, OpenAI, a private company, was valued at a staggering $500 billion. That's more than ExxonMobil, McDonald's, and Nike combined, without a single stock listing or IPO. For decades, the world's giants were oil, banks, and retail, but a new economic landscape has emerged, built not on traditional assets, but on algorithms. Today, over 40% of the 50 most valuable private companies are AI firms. This marks a significant shift in global economic power. The top 5 AI firms alone hold an astounding $1.3 trillion in private valuation. What's more astonishing is that 14 of these didn't even exist 5 years ago. The private market has become its own planet, where capital circulates faster and valuations inflate earlier. Let's explore this phenomenon. Startups now wait an average of 16 years to go public, twice as long as a decade ago. They raise endless rounds, staying in a twilight zone where public scrutiny never arrives. This extended private phase concentrates control with founders, allowing them to shape the company's direction without the immediate pressures or oversight of public markets. While AI's reach is global, there's a clear epicenter of this new economic power, the United States. A striking 36 of the top 50 most valuable private AI firms belong to the United States, highlighting its significant lead in this technological race. Beyond the US, major global players like China's ByteDance, Australia's Canva, Singapore's Grab, and the UK's Revolut are all part of this new invisible league, shaping industries worldwide. The age of public empires didn't end with a crash, but with a fade. A quiet revelation is taking hold. The new superpowers don't need stock tickers. What does this profound shift mean for us? The implications for society are vast and far-reaching. Markets used to mirror democracy, visible, accountable, collective. But now the biggest economic forces operate off exchange, fundamentally changing this relationship. These powerful yet unaccountable economic forces are shaping everything from our jobs to our political landscapes, often without public consent or understanding. We may not vote for them, but we all live inside their systems. The future is here, and it's built by AI empires. In today's fast-paced world, artificial intelligence is often seen as a threat to human jobs. But what if AI isn't replacing us, but rather is compressing time itself? A Stanford World Bank study in 2024 revealed a staggering truth. AI allows workers to complete a 90-minute task in under 30 minutes. This isn't about working harder. It's about the clock itself changing meaning. For centuries, productivity was measured by output per hour. But generative AI has introduced a fundamental shift in this equation. Now, you don't think before you act. You think with something that acts while you think. This is co-processing intelligence, and it fundamentally changes the human-AI interaction. AI isn't automating work. It's accelerating cognition. It's not saving time, but reassigning it, moving human thinking upstream to higher-value tasks. Economists call this the, quote, time shift effect, a redistribution of labor to more valuable steps within a process. When AI handles the mundane, humans are freed to focus on shaping, refining, and imagining, leading to higher-value contributions. Just as tractors allowed farmers to manage farms instead of digging, and spreadsheets enabled accountants to strategize instead of tallying, AI now lets thinkers architect instead of type. The benefits of AI are not just theoretical, they are backed by strong empirical evidence. A 2024 McKinsey report found that AI raised idea generation speed by 63% and decision quality by 40%, proving its impact on creative and strategic thinking. Engineers at Google noted that AI cuts code debugging time from 3 hours to just 30 minutes, freeing teams for more innovative design work. AI doesn't shorten tasks, it stretches potential, closing the gap between what we can imagine and what we can execute. The most powerful workers will be the most iterative, looping between machine output and human intuition. The clock on your desk is outdated. Hours no longer measure effort, they measure interface skill. What you can create in a morning with AI could once take a week. This means you can build bigger, more impactful things within the same day. AI is the first tool that lets humanity bend time instead of metal. We used machines to lift physical weight. Now we use intelligence to lift cognitive weight. The real revolution isn't that AI works for us, it's that it allows us to live in faster time, reallocating our thought processes for deeper, more scalable insights. Stay curious, because the future of work is here. How citizenship might move to the blockchain. Imagine a future where your citizenship isn't just a passport, but a digital identity. For centuries, citizenship was simple. Where you were born decided who you belonged to. But today, with remote work and global banking, that logic is beginning to crack. The next revolution in belonging won't happen in parliaments. It will happen on the blockchain. This digital ledger is quietly building a rival system of belonging. Citizenship has always been an analog contract, tying your rights and identity to geography. But blockchain offers a system that cares more about what you contribute. The definition of citizen is shifting from a birthright to a participation right, driven by innovations like Estonia's e-residency and the rise of DAOs. How exactly is citizenship moving into the digital realm? Let's explore how it's starting to migrate into code. On-chain identity systems like World ID or ENS allow individuals to prove their identity without relying on governments or corporations. You own your credentials, reputation, and access. Decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, enable communities to govern budgets, laws, and projects through smart contracts, operating globally and transparently, free from geographical constraints. In Web3 networks, your contribution history and verified skills form a portable reputation graph. The more value you add, the more rights and access you earn, regardless of your birthplace. This isn't anarchy, it's algorithmic citizenship. While traditional states grant rights by birth, blockchain polities grant them by proof of participation, recoding borders through consensus protocols and digital wallets. The shift is philosophical as much as technological. For centuries, nations offered identity, protection, and purpose. Blockchain offers a new trinity. Blockchain provides self-sovereignty, transparency, and choice, empowering individuals in a way traditional nation-states often cannot. We are witnessing the birth of the network state, a country that exists first online. Balaji Srinivasan called it, quote, cloud first, territory second. Ethereum, with its own code, economy, and wallets, is already a proto-nation. If your work, friends, and finances are online, why shouldn't your citizenship be? For digital nomads, creators, or exiles, anchoring trust without territory is not theory, but survival. Citizenship used to be printed in a passport. Soon, it will be written in code, a blockchain record of contribution, verified by math, not bureaucracy. The future won't ask where you're from, but what you've proven on-chain. When we take a picture, it's stored in the cloud, but where are those pictures actually? The cloud isn't some ethereal vapor. It's a complex physical infrastructure on the same ground, where we are. The photo we uploaded doesn't fly into the heavens. It embarks on a high-speed journey. Our photo travels through fiber optic cables at nearly the speed of light. It arrives at a windowless building somewhere on Earth, a place known as a data center. Let's take a look inside one of these crucial facilities. Once inside, our photo is broken into millions of digital fragments and duplicated for safety. These fragments are stored on racks of hard drives, humming day and night. The cloud is truly metal, magnets, and machines. These data centers are part of a vast, interconnected global network. There are thousands of data centers spread across the planet, from deserts to ice fields. Each data center holds billions of memories, cooled by liquid systems, and powered by entire power plants, forming the nervous system of modern life. Here's the paradox. We call it the cloud precisely because we don't want to imagine its true nature. The word cloud makes it sound weightless, infinite, and safe. In reality, it's one of the most energy-hungry structures humanity has ever built. Every picture you store draws power. The illusion works, and that illusion has profoundly changed how humans remember. We've outsourced memory itself. The cloud became our collective brain, always accessible, always updating. It also became our collective mirror. The cloud never forgets. This constant, infinite memory presents both beauty and danger. When you scroll through old photos, you're retrieving a file from a machine halfway across the world, one that never forgets. But if every memory is stored forever, what happens to forgetting? That fragile human grace that helps us heal, move on, and begin again. Your photos are safe in the cloud, but the cloud never sleeps, never erases, never stops expanding. Let's understand what is the radical promise of blockchain technology. Imagine a system that runs without the need for trust or state regulator, negating a collective failure. In 2008, a mysterious figure named Satoshi Nakamoto introduced a concept that would quietly challenge the world's financial order. Their 9-page paper, Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, introduced the world to an entirely new paradigm for transactions. The core idea, a world where code, not institutions, becomes the ultimate source of truth. But how exactly does this revolutionary technology function? Imagine a massive, shared digital notebook, duplicated across thousands of computers globally. Every entry is permanent and transparent. Transactions are verified by everyone, chained together with cryptographic locks, and crucially, no single entity owns or controls this ledger. However, this lack of central control presents a profound paradox. Once a rule is coded into the blockchain, it cannot be changed, even if it's flawed, or if unforeseen circumstances make it critical to do so. Lost passwords can mean millions vanished, and coding errors can drain entire treasuries, all without a central authority to intervene or reverse the mistake. For centuries, societies have relied on human trust and central banks to value of currency, a system that, while imperfect, offered a degree of accountability. We trusted banks with our money, courts with justice, and governments with value. This fragile human trust has been the bedrock of our systems. Blockchain proposes a radical alternative. Don't trust them. Trust the network. But with that removal of trust also comes a removal of human accountability. The irony of blockchain is that a system born from the dream of freedom is increasingly being used for tracking and control. The very tools designed for decentralization are being co-opted to create new forms of centralized oversight. Authoritarian governments explore blockchain for digital currencies that trace every transaction. Corporations use private chains to monitor supply and behavior. Even your NFT exists as a record in someone else's database. Despite these concerns, blockchain holds extraordinary power for good. In unstable economies, it offers a way to protect wealth from corruption and arbitrary control. In crisis zones, journalists can use it to prove evidence that cannot be erased. And in unbanked communities, it enables financial access where traditional institutions couldn't reach. Ultimately, blockchain isn't just about digital coins. It's about a fundamental shift in who gets to decide what's true. It's about rewriting the very foundations of truth, moving beyond just monetary transactions. The power shifts from institutions to code, from human consensus to cold computation, holding both immense liberation and profound danger. When truth becomes math, whoever controls the math controls the truth. Have you ever wondered what makes economies vulnerable? Today we're diving into moral hazard, a concept that quietly reshapes our financial world and influences decisions from boardrooms to government halls. Imagine playing poker with someone else's money. You take bigger risks, right? That's the core of moral hazard. When people are shielded from consequences, they act recklessly. It's human nature, scaled to economies. This idea first appeared in 17th-century insurance contracts. Ship owners, once insured, sometimes overloaded their vessels or took unnecessary risks, knowing the insurer would pay if they sank. Protection changed behavior, and risk became contagious. Fast forward to 2008. Major financial institutions, having built towers of debt, were deemed, quote, too big to fail. Trillions in bailouts saved the global economy, but a crucial lesson was lost. Saving those who caused the fire made the next spark inevitable. Moral hazard works quietly. Banks expect rescues and gamble harder. Investors expect intervention and chase higher returns. Citizens expect debt forgiveness and borrow beyond their means. The safety net distorts the game itself. Here's the paradox. Modern economies need some safety nets. Insurance, credit, central banks. They all rely on shared trust and shared risk. The question isn't removing the net, but learning to walk the rope responsibly. After every crisis, the pattern repeats. Losses are privatized in good times, socialized in bad. Profits go to the bold, pain goes to the public. Each time, moral hazard deepens, unseen, waiting for its next victim. Maybe the real hazard isn't moral, but psychological. We build systems to absorb risk, then forget that risk keeps systems honest. Remove it, and stability becomes an illusion. When a bank, company, or government says, "Don't worry, someone will cover it," remember, that someone is always us. A modern paradox. Why GDP growth doesn't always mean true progress. Take Ireland in 2024, for example. They boasted a staggering 70% rise in GDP per capita over the last decade, tripling most developed nations. An economic miracle, right? Not quite. The truth is, the average Irish citizen didn't suddenly become 70% richer. This phenomenal growth was real, but it wasn't theirs. Let's explore why our traditional scoreboard, GDP, is no longer telling the full story. For most of history, GDP was our go-to for success. Higher GDP meant more jobs, more money, more progress. But in today's world, where profits can move faster than people, that scoreboard has become distorted. In Ireland's case, global tech giants like Apple, Google, and Meta shifted their profits there, leveraging lower taxes. So Ireland's GDP soared, not because it produced more, but because it hosted more numbers. This is known as profit shifting, and it quietly distorts our measure of prosperity. Here's the deeper paradox. As GDP climbs, quality of life doesn't always follow. This is where the real disconnect lies. Ask the average worker in nations with strong GDP growth, like Poland, Turkey, or Portugal, if they feel wealthier, and many will tell you no. This is because GDP counts everything, even if it benefits only a few. GDP adds oil spills through cleanup costs, war spending, and corporate profits routed through tax havens. But it never adds unpaid care, community, or mental well-being, the true wealth of societies. It adds, but never subtracts the negative impacts. Economic growth used to mean collective progress, but now, in many countries, it simply reflects the speed of capital relocation. This is a crucial shift in understanding. We've built an economy that measures the motion of money, not the meaning of it. This disconnect leads to surprising outcomes in real-world scenarios. That's why countries like Ireland, despite high GDP, still grapple with housing crises and inequality. And why Canada, despite strong population growth, shows only 1% GDP per capita growth, a statistical penalty for having more humans, not less prosperity. Economists are finally catching up to what philosophers have long known. Not all growth is good, and not all stagnation is failure. This realization is leading to new ways of evaluating a nation's health, focusing on a more holistic view of prosperity. Some nations are now developing well-being indexes, measuring health, environment, equality, and happiness, alongside economic output. Because GDP tells us how big the pie is, not how it's shared, or whether it's nourishing anyone. If you want to understand the real health of a country, ask simpler questions. How long do its citizens live? How safe do they feel walking home? How many can rest without anxiety? That's what real wealth looks like: time, trust, and tranquility. Things GDP still can't count. So when you see a green arrow pointing up next to a country's name, don't assume it's thriving. It might just be breathing in borrowed air. Because the true economy isn't just what a nation makes, it's what it makes possible for its people. Let's deep dive into the geography of power to uncover why a passport can be the world's most unequal privilege. Let's explore this unseen force shaping our world. We often talk about the luck of the draw in life, but few realize just how much of our destiny is decided by a seemingly simple document: our passport. It's a silent lottery ticket, dictating our freedom before we even take our first breath. Consider this. In 2025, a Singapore passport grants visa-free access to 193 countries. Compare that to a passport from Afghanistan, Syria, or Somalia, which opens fewer than 30 borders. That's a stark difference in global mobility. This isn't just about paperwork, it's about destiny. The color and stamps on your passport silently dictate what you can see, learn, earn, and even dream. It's a fundamental aspect of life that many take for granted. We often focus on wealth inequality, but mobility inequality is arguably even more defining. Where you are born can silently dictate your life's trajectory, impacting every aspect from personal growth to economic opportunity. This disparity in movement isn't just a minor inconvenience. It's a foundational element of modern life, creating vast differences in opportunity and access based purely on one's birthplace. Your passport is the most powerful piece of technology most people will ever own. It's a global permission slip that decides how free your life can be, granting or denying access to experiences and opportunities. So what exactly makes some passports more powerful than others? It's a complex interplay of factors, not just random chance. Diplomatic trust is paramount. Countries with stable governance and strong trade ties are rewarded with open doors. Economic leverage also plays a huge role. A stronger economy means more valuable travelers. Geopolitical alliances significantly shape visa agreements, following trade routes and defense treaties rather than empathy. A NATO handshake, for instance, can be worth more than 1 billion individual dreams. We often perceive borders as barriers keeping people out, but in reality, they actively work to keep opportunity unevenly distributed across the globe. A Singaporean can board a plane to almost anywhere on impulse, while an Afghan needs months of forms, sponsorships, and luck just to visit a neighboring country. This creates a deeply unequal landscape. Ironically, the passports with the least access often belong to nations with the youngest, hungriest populations. These are the very people who could benefit most from global travel, education, and exchange, yet they are the most restricted. When we zoom out, passport rankings become maps of trust and trauma, reflecting centuries of colonial hierarchies, migration fears, and post-war alliances frozen into bureaucracy. Europe dominates because its systems defined the rules of movement, while Asia rose due to stability and investment. Africa and parts of the Middle East remain stuck in suspicion loops, punished for instability they didn't always create. Every border control booth is a mirror of global history. If freedom is the ability to choose your own path, then most of humanity still rents its freedom. A visa can decide who you love, where you work, or how much of the world you're allowed to touch. A visa is more than just a sticker. It's a gatekeeper to personal autonomy and global engagement, a stark reminder of the limitations placed on so many. However, in an age of remote work, digital citizenship, and nomad visas, new cracks are forming in the old wall of passports. The question is whether we'll widen them or seal them again with fear. Ultimately, a passport isn't just a document. It's a silent lottery ticket that profoundly impacts one's life chances and opportunities. If luck decided yours, the least you can do is use it, not for escape, but for empathy. Recognize the privilege and understand its implications for others. Because the true measure of freedom isn't how many countries you can enter, it's how many people you can help move forward. Let's wish towards a world where mobility is a right, not a privilege. Why do the happiest cities often not work the hardest? Let's explore the hidden patterns of modern life. If success was purely about endless hustle, the richest cities would be the happiest. But the data tells a different, quieter story. A global study of 128 cities ranked the world's best for work-life balance. And almost every winner came from Europe. The number one spot? Copenhagen, Denmark. A city where leaving work on time isn't a sign of laziness, it's a sign of trust. We've been trained to glorify busy and wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. But what if real success is about time? Cities like Copenhagen, Helsinki, or Stockholm score highest, not because people work less, but because they work wisely. And that's the paradox modern capitalism often misses. Beyond a certain point, more work doesn't mean more output, it means less life. Let's decode what these happy cities have in common. Beyond just policy, Copenhagen champions Ikigai, the art of cozy contentment, fostering a sense of well-being. Helsinki gives every employee 5 weeks of paid vacation, treating rest as an investment. Stockholm encourages fika, coffee breaks designed for connection, not just caffeine. The biggest insight, countries that work less often produce more. Energy, not time, is the real currency of performance. Denmark's 37-hour workweek produces one of the world's highest productivity per hour, contrasting with long-hour cultures facing burnout. Turns out you can't innovate with an empty mind. Creativity skyrockets when people feel rested, trusted, and autonomous. This map isn't just about policies. It's a map of values. It shows which societies treat humans as resources and which treat them as beings. Work-life balance is about permission. Permission to pause, reflect, and define yourself beyond a paycheck. It's about economies designed for longevity, not velocity. Ask yourself, would you rather live in a city that pays you more or one that gives you your time back? One buys your effort, the other multiplies your life. In the end, the healthiest societies are the ones that measure progress not by GDP, but by how many hours their people get to simply be alive. So maybe the next revolution isn't in AI or automation. Maybe it's in recovering time. Because the cities leading the future aren't the busiest. They're the ones that learn the oldest truth of all. Rest is a form of intelligence. Why Nordics have been able to crack the happiness code. Let's explore why countries like Finland and Denmark consistently top the World Happiness Report. Year after year, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, and Norway, small and cold, lead the world in happiness. What's their secret? In cities like Helsinki or Copenhagen, life feels unhurried. The constant rush seen in other global cities is notably absent. Here, happiness isn't a fleeting peak emotion, but a calm, sustainable baseline condition, deeply integrated into daily life. The key difference is that Nordic happiness isn't individual, it's infrastructural. Societies are designed so well-being is a default, not a luxury. So what are the real drivers behind this unique Nordic contentment? Let's break it down. Over 70% of Nordic citizens trust their government, police, and even strangers. This trust saves immense energy, typically wasted on anxiety. Smaller income gaps and less executive-to-worker pay disparity mean less envy and more stability. People collaborate to live well, rather than compete to survive. Free healthcare, debt-free education, and childcare that supports working parents are not just socialism, but public policy designed for stress reduction. From urban forests to minimalist, warmly lit homes, Nordic culture treats aesthetics as mental hygiene. Cities prioritize clarity, not cars, for calmer minds. The Swedish concept of lagom means not too much, not too little. It's an anti-excess, pro-balance philosophy, mastering enough, while others chase more. The counterintuitive truth is that Nordic happiness isn't about constant smiling. It's about removing the constant need to chase happiness. When life is secure, work is humane, and weekends are respected, happiness stops being a pursuit and becomes a natural byproduct. This profound shift means that with security and humane conditions, happiness naturally emerges, rather than being an elusive goal. Once basic needs and fairness are met, trust becomes paramount. Trust that tomorrow won't undo you, that taxes provide value, and society supports you. While wealth is often linked to happiness, beyond basic needs, the real currency isn't money, it's trust. This invisible safety net doesn't just catch you, it frees you to live boldly, fostering resilience and confidence. In the Nordics, happiness feels collective. It's not just about my life going well, but our lives working together. This is evident in their cities, schools, and even their quiet moments, a shared sense of thriving that transcends individual success. Perhaps true modern intelligence lies not in building higher skyscrapers, but in fostering calmer, more harmonious societies. The Nordics didn't just hack happiness, they engineered dignity, ensuring well-being is a fundamental right. Instead of their weather, perhaps the rest of the world should copy their wisdom and start designing societies that prioritize well-being. Europe may appear united on a map, but a closer look reveals a stark economic divide. Why are some countries 23 times richer than others? In 2025, a worker in Luxembourg earns an average of $131,000 annually, while in Ukraine, that figure is just $5,600. A 23-fold gap exists within the same continent. Economically, Europe is split. Western and Northern European nations like Luxembourg, Ireland, and Switzerland boast GDP per capita above $100,000. Luxembourg's wealth is built on finance, global banks, tax treaties, and EU institutions, all condensed into a city the size of a suburb. Ireland's economic boom is fueled by foreign tech giants like Apple, Google, and Meta, who park their European profits in Dublin. In stark contrast, Eastern European nations like Moldova, Kosovo, and Ukraine, even before the war, faced decades of underinvestment, energy dependence, and brain drain, all falling below $8,000 GDP per capita. Interestingly, Europe's biggest economies, Germany, the UK, and France, hover around $50,000 per person. Meanwhile, Nordic countries like Norway, Denmark, and Finland, with smaller populations, achieve $70,000 to $90,000 with higher equality. The extremes persist because integration stopped at the border of opportunity. Western Europe exports capital, while Eastern Europe exports people. The demographic danger is real. As young Eastern Europeans move west, aging populations remain behind, lowering productivity even further. It's not just money that divides Europe, it's momentum. The continent that once built empires is now watching one emerge within itself, revealing a complex economic landscape. Have you ever wondered why your money seems to buy less over time? It's not magic, it's inflation. Inflation is the silent pickpocket of modern life. Without a trace, the value of your savings can quietly diminish. So what exactly is inflation? It's more than just rising prices. It's a fundamental shift in the purchasing power of your money. Simply put, inflation occurs when money multiplies faster than the goods and services it can buy. It's an imbalance in the economy. This imbalance leads to too many dollars chasing too few goods, pushing prices upward and eroding the value of your money. History is filled with examples of how inflation can dramatically impact economies and everyday lives. In the 1970s, the U.S. experienced severe inflation due to oil shocks and excessive money printing, causing paychecks to lose value rapidly. More recently, countries like Zimbabwe and Venezuela faced hyperinflation, where huge amounts of cash couldn't even buy basic necessities, leading to a collapse of trust in their currency. So what are the underlying causes of inflation? It's a complex interplay of various economic factors. Sometimes, inflation is driven by strong consumer demand outstripping supply. Other times, it's due to rising production costs, like fuel or wages. Government policies also play a significant role, especially when central banks inject new money into the economy to stimulate growth. Here's the paradox. The very institutions designed to fight inflation can inadvertently contribute to it. When central banks offer cheap credit, It fuels spending, which can then lift prices and erode savings. Inflation isn't just an economic number. It's a measure of trust in the future value of money. When that trust wavers, people's behavior changes, often accelerating the inflationary spiral. In a strange way, inflation also has a quiet justice. It punishes idle wealth and rewards those who create value and innovate, forcing economic movement. Ultimately, inflation asks us a profound question. If your savings can vanish without being touched, what truly holds value, paper or purpose? It reminds us that an economy runs not just on money, but on belief. It would surprise us to know who truly controls the global flow of money. It's a question with profound implications for all of us. Right now, the world's total money supply stands at an astounding $140 trillion. But here's the surprising truth. Nearly 3/4 of it flows from only 3 sources. Think of China, the US, and the European Union as the 3 main valves of a single global pipe. What they do affects everyone. China alone holds about $46 trillion, roughly a third of the planet's entire money supply. The United States and Europe follow closely, with about $22 trillion each in their respective money supplies. Together, these regions quietly decide how expensive your rent is, how risky a loan feels, and how startups raise capital across the globe. How did power get this concentrated? It didn't come from factories or trade. After the 2008 financial meltdown, central banks discovered a new superpower, creating digital money to stop collapse. Then came 2020. In just 2 years, global money jumped 25%, the biggest surge ever recorded. Trillions were minted with keystrokes. But here's the paradox. The more money we create, the less clearly it measures real value. At first, it feels like prosperity. Markets rise, credit flows, governments look competent. Then comes the distortion. Prices detach from productivity, and the map of opportunity warps. That's why some economists call this era the age of invisible governance. Because whoever controls the money tap doesn't need an army, a navy, or a vote, just a printer, an interest rate, and global trust. Every major decision, how cheap your mortgage feels, how volatile your currency is, depends on which of those 3 taps turns first. Between 2021 and 2024, the flow slowed to just 1.4% a year. But the distortion remains baked in. Assets inflated, wages lagging, and nations learning that money isn't neutral. It's narrative. China, the US, and the EU don't just manage cash. They choreograph global reality. Stay curious. The moment you understand who controls the tap, you start seeing how the entire world moves. China's economic miracle has captivated the world. But beneath the surface, a quiet crisis is brewing. Can China's economy survive its own debt trap? For decades, China's growth seemed unstoppable, lifting 800 million people out of poverty and becoming a global powerhouse. Yet this miracle was built on a foundation of debt, now a growing crisis. Let's look at the sheer scale of this challenge. China's total debt is staggering, and it's impacting every level of its economy. China's total debt now exceeds 300% of its GDP, a figure higher than the US, Japan, or Europe. Local governments alone owe trillions they struggle to repay. Property giants like Evergrande have collapsed under immense loan burdens. Across dozens of provinces, projects, from empty airports to ghost cities, stand half-built and abandoned. The story of China's rise was built on borrowed money. For 2 decades, cheap credit fueled everything from housing to highways. The cracks truly began to show when China's property boom turned to bust. This sector was a critical part of the economy. At its peak, real estate accounted for about 1/3 of China's economy. Home prices soared, and ordinary citizens invested their life savings into apartments. Now, those prices are falling. The very system that lifted millions into the middle class is now threatening to drag them down. Here's the paradox. China can't stop borrowing. If it tightens credit, growth collapses. If it keeps lending, the bubble only grows larger. To mask the pain, Beijing shifted debt offshore, lending over $1 trillion to developing nations under the Belt and Road Initiative. But many of these countries are now struggling to repay China, making China's debt crisis a global issue. Still, China isn't powerless. Its government controls the banks, the currency, and the media, giving it significant tools to manage the crisis. This control allows Beijing to restructure debt quietly, print money discreetly, and delay defaults for years. But it can't delay everything forever. A shrinking workforce and an aging population make every loan harder to repay, adding a significant demographic challenge to China's economic woes. So the question isn't whether China will crash, but whether it can transform before gravity takes over. The world's second-largest economy must learn to slow down without breaking. For the first time in history, the world's biggest countries are facing a demographic shift. We're running out of babies. In 1960, a woman in India or Brazil had, on average, 6 children. By 2025, that number is just 2, and in China, only 1. The replacement level is 2.1 births per woman, the threshold needed to keep a population stable. Most of the world's biggest countries have now fallen below this. The world isn't having enough children to replace itself, leading to a quiet demographic decline. China, once fearing overpopulation with a one-child policy, now faces empty classrooms and an aging workforce due to a fertility rate of just 1.0. Economic uncertainty, urban housing costs, and burnout are all contributing factors, redefining what family means in many parts of the world. While many nations decline, some still stand on the opposite end, powering the world's population growth. Nigeria and Ethiopia maintain high birth rates at 4.5 and 4 births per woman, respectively, driving global population increases. By 2100, 1 in 3 people under 18 could be African, highlighting a significant demographic shift towards the continent. The planet's future is splitting in two, with vastly different demographic trajectories emerging across the globe. One half of the world is growing older, richer, and facing increasing loneliness as birth rates decline. The other half is characterized by a young population, often facing poverty, yet experiencing rapid demographic growth. Lower fertility once meant progress, signifying education, empowerment, and choice for women. In the past, declining birth rates were often seen as a sign of societal advancement. But as birth rates sink below survival levels, progress itself may now need saving. This shift poses a profound challenge to humanity's future. If the 20th century was about how to feed billions, the 21st may be about how to find them. The demographic landscape is changing dramatically. Europe's population is shrinking, and fast. But can immigration really be the answer to this demographic challenge? Let's explore the question whether immigration can truly save Europe from its rapidly shrinking population. By 2050, the European Union could lose over 30 million people. The average European woman has 1.5 children, far below the 2.1 needed to sustain the population. Entire villages in Italy, Spain, and Poland are vanishing, not from conflict, but from silence. This demographic shift is a silent crisis. For decades, immigrants have already been Europe's invisible engine, quietly supporting its economies and societies. In Germany, 1 in 5 workers today was born abroad, highlighting the significant contribution of immigrants to the workforce. In the UK, nearly half of new doctors and nurses trace their roots elsewhere, showcasing their vital role in the healthcare system. France's birth rate, once Europe's highest, is now driven largely by immigrant families, demonstrating their impact on population growth. But here's the catch. Immigration doesn't just fill jobs, it reshapes identity. This brings both economic opportunities and cultural challenges. Europe's economies need millions of young workers, but its politics fears losing cultural cohesion. This tension is a central challenge. The tension between these two forces, economics and emotion, defines the continent's future. It's a delicate balance to strike. Countries across Europe have adopted different approaches to address this demographic and immigration challenge. Countries like Germany and Sweden have embraced refugees and foreign talent, softening the demographic crash and benefiting from new contributions. Others, like Hungary and Italy, have closed their doors, hoping automation and family incentives can fix what demography won't, facing different challenges. Without migration, Europe's working-age population would fall by nearly 90 million by 2050, a staggering decline with significant repercussions. Despite varying approaches, the demographic math doesn't lie, revealing the stark realities of an aging population. This means fewer taxpayers, fewer caregivers, and fewer innovators, just as healthcare and pensions explode in cost, creating a fiscal challenge. In conclusion, Europe faces a pivotal moment in its demographic journey, and immigration plays a crucial role in its future. Immigration isn't just a moral debate anymore, it's a survival strategy for Europe, addressing its demographic and economic needs. The real question is how fast Europe can turn from fortress to frontier, attracting the talent of Africa's booming youth and Asia's skilled middle class before its own workforce collapses. Why Europe's population is shrinking faster than its economy can adapt. Europe is facing a demographic shift, unlike any other continent. In 1950, Europe accounted for 22% of the world's population. By 2025, that number will drop to a mere 9%, and it's still declining. The statistics are alarming. In Italy, twice as many people die as are born each year. In Germany, nearly 1 in 5 citizens is over 67. And in countries like Poland and Spain, entire villages are becoming ghost towns due to aging populations, not war. Despite the shrinking population, Europe's economy hasn't collapsed. It's an interesting paradox, holding steady, at least for now. This resilience is thanks to factors like automation, immigration, and decades of accumulated wealth, which have postponed a major economic downturn. While Europe boasts a high average GDP per capita of $44,000, its GDP growth has stagnated. Productivity gains alone cannot indefinitely replace the missing workforce. The core of the problem lies in the fertility crisis. Europe's birth rate is significantly below what's needed for population sustainability. The fertility rate hovers around 1.5 births per woman, far below the 2.1 required to maintain the current population level. At this rate, the European Union is projected to lose 30 million people by 2050, with some nations facing a more than 20% decline in a single generation. So what led to this demographic challenge? It wasn't a single catastrophe, but rather the unintended consequences of success. Increased education, women entering the workforce, a scarcity of urban housing, and a shift towards individual choice over traditional family structures have all played a role. The very forces that propelled Europe to prosperity are now contributing to its aging population. In stark contrast, Africa's population is booming. Nigeria alone adds more people each year than all of Europe combined, suggesting a dramatic demographic shift by 2100. Here lies another paradox. Europe's wealth continues to attract young migrant workers, who are essential for filling the gaps in its aging workforce. These young workers are crucial for the economic survival of countries that can no longer replenish their own populations. However, politically, immigration remains a deeply divisive issue that Europe struggles to agree on. Europe's future won't be a sudden collapse, but a gradual fading into a quieter, older rhythm, year by year. Let's explore an eye-opening comparison that reveals a striking disparity in life expectancy across the globe, unveiled in a dramatic difference between Monaco and Nigeria in Africa. In 2025, the world's shortest and longest lives are separated by just a 6-hour flight, a stark paradox that reveals much about global health and well-being. In Monaco, average life expectancy reaches an impressive 86.5 years. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, it's a stark 54.6 years. This isn't just a number. It's a 32-year gap, representing more than an entire generation's worth of life. Let's delve into the situation in Nigeria and the broader Sahel region of Africa. Across Africa's Sahel belt, including Chad, Niger, Mali, and South Sudan, life expectancy sadly hovers below 60 years. Diseases eradicated elsewhere still cycle every decade. Infant mortality rates are 10 times higher, and millions lack access to clean water. Now, let's cross the Mediterranean to Monaco and explore what makes it so different. Monaco is smaller than most city parks, yet 40% of its residents are millionaires. Universal healthcare, walkable streets, a Mediterranean diet, and almost zero social stress contribute to a serene lifestyle. Monaco's longevity secret isn't just medicine, it's margin, time, nutrition, and peace. Now let's explore a deeper twist. The United States, the world's richest large nation, presents a surprising paradox. Despite its wealth, the U.S. ranks a surprisingly low 46th globally, with a life expectancy of 79.5 years. This places it below Costa Rica, Malta, and even Chile, despite its enormous healthcare spending. The culprit? Lifestyle diseases like obesity, opioid addiction, and chronic stress, costing America over 12 years compared to Monaco. The data paints a simple but haunting picture, revealing deeper truths about prosperity and longevity. Prosperity without balance shortens life. It's not just about what you have, but how you live. Every 5-year increase in income adds less than 1 year to lifespan, but every 5-year increase in education adds 3. Clean air and strong community connections extend life more effectively than hospital beds ever could. In conclusion, where we're born and how we live still fundamentally determine how long we stay on this earth. Ultimately, our birthplace and lifestyle choices are the most significant determinants of our lifespan. In a world obsessed with growth and material wealth, the rarest luxury left is truly longevity. Why major societal upheavals seem to happen in cycles? Is it just coincidence, or is there a hidden pattern? From the storming of the Bastille in 1789 to the global protests of 1968, history shows us waves of revolution roughly 50 years apart. But why? Consider 1789 in Paris, 1848 across Europe, Petrograd in 1917, and the student movements of 1968. These major events punctuate history with remarkable regularity. Historians refer to this as the saeculum cycle, a Latin term for a long human life. It suggests revolutions are not accidents, but civilization's built-in renewal system. Each generation plays a distinct role. Youth, raised in comfort, grow impatient, while elders hold memories of past struggles. This dynamic fuels the cycle. The saeculum cycle isn't random. It follows a predictable pattern, a social clockwork that ticks through generations. The first decade after an upheaval brings hope and new beginnings. The second solidifies that hope into a new social and political order. By the third decade, bureaucracy hardens, and the initial ideals fade. The fourth decade sees frustration mature as limitations become apparent. Around year 50, the grandchildren of the initial rebels, seeing only walls, not victories, begin to push for change once again. Let's look at some historical examples that clearly illustrate this cyclical pattern. In 1789, France saw liberty's birth, which, after periods of empire and monarchy, set the stage for the widespread European revolts of 1848. The ideals of equality born in 1917, Russia eventually curdled into control, laying the groundwork for the glasnost wave 70 years later. The 1968 world protests were largely driven by the children of war survivors who had grown tired of the established obedience and pushed for new freedoms. This rhythm extends beyond politics. Women gained voting rights in the U.S. in 1919. Around 1970, the second feminist wave crested, and by the 2020s, a new wave is reshaping workplaces and language. Why 50 years? It's often the memory span of institutions. Enough leaders retire or disengage for old myths to weaken, allowing new ideas to re-emerge. If the pattern holds, the 2020s mark another inflection point. We see similar societal pressures building today. Economic inequality, climate fear, and digital surveillance are all potent seeds of reform currently being sown in our society. The next revolutions may not storm palaces, but will likely rewrite algorithms, reform tax codes, and rebuild trust systems in our digital age. Revolutions peak every 50 years, because that's how long it takes for hope to forget itself and rediscover its purpose. Progress isn't linear, it's a generational respiration. Stay tuned for our next topics. Why does every city's skyline bend into a pyramid? Why do we fear silence? And why will your digital twin outlive you? Keep questioning, and stay awake to the cycle. This is the story of how student protest changed the world. You're living in a world built by a student protest. On June 16, 1976, thousands of black students in Soweto, South Africa, walked out of class. They were protesting a decree that forced lessons in Afrikaans, the language of their rulers. What began as a peaceful protest quickly escalated into violence, creating an image that would shock the world. By noon, police fired tear gas, then bullets, at the protesting children. The body of 13-year-old Hector Peterson, lifted by a classmate, became the image that crossed the world. It showed what apartheid really was, power that feared its own students. When a government decides what children are allowed to learn, the lesson becomes resistance. Within days, the uprising spread from Johannesburg to Cape Town, from churches to factories. The mechanism most people miss is visibility. Apartheid survived on routine, but the uprising broke that routine in public. The photograph, the funerals, the marches. They pulled the struggle from whispers into headlines. The world finally looked in. Sanctions followed, boycotts spread. Money and reputation, the regime's quiet armor, began to crack. The emotional pivot arrived at the scale of a family. The uprising shifted fear, transforming passive observers into active participants. Parents joined the marches they once begged their kids to avoid. Teachers risked prison to keep lessons alive. The state doubled down with more arrests and more fear, yet fear had already shifted sides. Authority rests on the belief that resisting is pointless. But when the young act together, a single day can raise the cost of oppression more than a decade of speeches. That was Soweto's math. The sustained pressure from the Soweto uprising and the global response eventually led to the collapse of apartheid. By 1990, Nelson Mandela walked free, a testament to the decades of struggle. By 1994, South Africans of every color voted. The ballot ink on those fingers carried the echo of school paint on those signs. Every fight since, from language rights to campus protests to global boycotts, borrows Soweto's playbook: make truth visible, together, in public. Return to that morning. Children in uniforms, cardboard signs, a chant turning into history. They walked out to learn and taught the world instead. Have you ever wondered why successful empires over centuries have been moving west? From ancient Babylon to modern-day Silicon Valley, the arc of power has consistently traced a westward path across our planet. Why does history follow the sunset? The earliest records show this pattern emerging as far back as 1750 BCE with the rise of Babylon. Centuries later, Greece conquered westward into Italy, Rome into Gaul, and Spain sailed into the Atlantic. Each new empire carried the torch of the last westward. The core idea here is that power follows momentum, not memory. It's a counterintuitive thought. We often believe progress moves forward, but it typically moves away. So what's the mechanism behind this? Our Earth spins east, but human ambition, like the day itself, consistently ends in the west. Each new frontier inherits light, labor, and leftover wealth before darkness inevitably catches up. This creates a natural tilt of opportunity. When established trade routes become expensive and saturated, innovation naturally migrates to the cheaper, emerging horizon. It's a constant quest for fresh opportunity. This pattern is evident in both geography and industrial development throughout history. In the 16th century, ships departing Lisbon harnessed Atlantic winds that naturally curved westward, a geographical advantage that richly rewarded the brave explorers. By the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution mirrored this logic, pushing from Manchester to Chicago, chasing cheaper coal, open ports, and restless, innovative minds. Each empire is a relentless relay race against stagnation. Let's look at 3 specific examples of this westward movement. First, the Silk Road. Once terminating in Antioch, its routes later rerouted through Venice, and then further west to London. Next, the Atlantic Triangle. Colonial profits from this trade route fundamentally rewired global commerce, shifting wealth westward across the ocean. And finally, Silicon Valley. This technological hub was built on a migration of ideas and innovation, traveling from Boston's more established, colder labs towards the Californian sun. So what about today? What does the West look like in the 21st century? The next frontier may be virtual, not strictly geographic. Today, data centers hum not in traditional capitals, but on cooler coasts, optimized for efficiency. Capital now flows westward into new digital, decentralized, and borderless currencies. Ultimately, empires move west because humans are driven to chase that vanishing edge where yesterday's power meets tomorrow's promise. Perhaps this is our oldest superstition, the belief that the sun will always rise again, and we must keep following it to truly believe so. Stay tuned for more hidden patterns where we'll explore why revolutions peak every 50 years, why we dream every night, and why deserts make disciplined people. Keep traveling west. Stay curious. How did China quietly replace America as the world's trade superpower? Let's delve into the numbers and strategies. In just over 2 decades, the global trade landscape has undergone a monumental transformation. In the year 2000, the United States was the top trading partner for almost every major economy, with trade totaling $2 trillion, while China's was a mere $474 billion. Fast forward to 2024, and that map has flipped. China now dominates trade for most of Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, and South America, with $6.2 trillion in total trade, surpassing America's $5.3 trillion. This wasn't a sudden shift, it was a carefully engineered rise over 2 decades. While the US built alliances through politics and defense, China built them through factories and ports. From the Belt and Road Initiative to African copper mines, from Southeast Asian textiles to Middle Eastern oil, China's influence grew. China didn't just sell goods, it financed infrastructure, trained workers, and absorbed raw materials. The growth in China's trade has been nothing short of staggering. Between 2000 and 2024, China's trade grew by an astonishing 1,200%, while America's rose only 167%. By 2012, China had already surpassed the US in total global trade. Today, over 130 countries count China as their largest trading partner, compared to only about 50 for the US. This dominance extends far beyond mere exports. It's about influence and dependence. Every trade route now doubles as a political connection, strengthening China's global reach. When Chinese companies build infrastructure in other nations, they aren't just exporting goods, they're exporting dependence. This has made China the world's indispensable economy, a nation no one can afford to alienate. But dominance always comes with a price, and China is facing new challenges. China's population is aging, its factories are slowing, and debt from its overseas lending is piling up. The US, meanwhile, still controls the dollar, innovation, and military power, maintaining significant global leverage. The global balance of trade has shifted dramatically, but the balance of power is still being rewritten. The next decade won't be about who sells more, but who navigates the economic slowdown better. Stay tuned for our upcoming videos on Can China's economy survive its own debt trap? Why the dollar still rules the world? And the silent battle for Africa's supply chains. What is disruption, and why do we both fear it and worship it? Let's explore the powerful force shaping our world. Every few years, a new word captures the spirit of change, and none has ruled the last 2 decades like disruption. It's the badge of innovation, the excuse for chaos, and the quiet fear in every boardroom. But what does it really mean? Why does the world both celebrate and dread disruption? It's a paradox we constantly face. At its core, disruption is simple. It's when something new doesn't just compete. It redefines the game. Think of Netflix replacing Blockbuster, or smartphones replacing cameras. A true disruptor doesn't enter the market politely. It breaks the rules everyone thought were unbreakable. But here's the twist. Disruption isn't always visible at first. It starts small. When it begins, it looks fragile, even laughable. Early iPhones couldn't copy-paste. Tesla barely produced cars. Each quietly attacked a weak assumption the old world relied on, that people need ownership, that experts can't be replaced, that real businesses have offices. Clayton Christensen, who first coined disruptive innovation, warned of this paradox. The greatest threats don't come from competitors who look strong, but from those who look irrelevant. That's why incumbents miss it. Kodak invented the digital camera and still died from it. Nokia laughed at touchscreen phones. Disruption, then, isn't about technology. It's much deeper than just the tools we use. It's about timing, psychology, and refusal. It rewards the outsider's mind. The one willing to ask, why does it have to be this way? That question is powerful because it attacks not what you do but what you believe. So what's the takeaway? Disruption is a fundamental force that reshapes industries and societies. We worship disruptors because they remind us that power can shift. They show us that new ideas can overthrow established norms. And why do we fear them? Because they prove power always will shift. Change is inevitable, and disruption is its agent. Disruption isn't an event, it's a mirror. It shows whether you're clinging to comfort or building what comes next. Shatter norms or industries, your choice. Every time you open a map, tag a photo, or hail a ride, your phone already knows where you are. Not roughly, not vaguely. Exactly. It's one of the quietest miracles of modern life, and one of its greatest risks. Your smartphone's sense of direction starts 20,000 kilometers above you, with a constellation of satellites orbiting Earth. Each satellite sends out a signal carrying the most precious thing in physics, time. Your phone listens to at least 4 satellites at once, measuring how long each signal takes to arrive. A few billionths of a second in difference, and boom, it triangulates your exact position. That's GPS, a global heartbeat of math and microwave pulses. But here's what most people don't realize. GPS alone isn't enough. When you're indoors, under clouds, or deep in a city, satellites struggle to see you. That's when your phone quietly calls for backup. Wi-Fi networks, cell towers, Bluetooth beacons, even the tilt of your accelerometer. Every digital breadcrumb adds to your location shadow. It's astonishingly precise, but precision has a price. Every location ping creates data. Who you met, where you lingered, what pattern defines your day. And that data doesn't stay on your screen. It's sold, analyzed, and fed into invisible maps, not of geography, but of behavior. Think about it. Your phone knows not just where you are, but who you might become. Frequent the gym? Health insurance might adjust premiums. Stop at the same cafe daily? Advertisers already know your morning mood. It's not paranoia, it's the invisible economy of location. Yet here's the paradox. We've come to rely on it. From finding lost children to tracking stolen cars to saving lives in disasters, location data is modern oxygen. You can't live a digital life without leaving digital footprints. So maybe the real question isn't, how does your phone know where you are? It's how much are you willing to be known? Because the same satellites that guide you home also make you visible to the world. Why do cities built near rivers rise first and fall hardest, from 3100 BCE Mesopotamia to modern Shanghai's Huangpu? From the start of civilization, every great power hugged a waterline. The Tigris and Euphrates made Sumer rich. The Nile measured Egypt's fate in cubits. London's cholera maps and Shanghai's typhoon walls tell the same story. So what keeps us hugging the waterline? Flowing water meant food, movement, and trade. Water is the cheapest highway. Cities form where movement is easy. The very shortcut that makes them rich is the path disasters use to arrive. Transport costs fall fastest on water. The same channels that bring grain and goods carry silt, storms, and sickness upstream. The path in becomes the path out. Think of John Snow tracing cholera to a single Broad Street pump in 1854. Each age builds its defenses, and each thinks it's safer than the last. The Thames Barrier, giant silver doors holding back the surge. Or the new sponge city parks in Guangzhou and Rotterdam that quietly drink the rain before it floods the streets. By mid-century, hundreds of millions could live in low-lying deltas, where tides meet towers. Insurance firms already rewrite maps. Governments debate levees, sponge infrastructure, and managed retreat. Every gate, every drain, every tidal lock we build is a modern echo of ancient flood markings on stone. For centuries, progress has always been the art of building the city just one step ahead of the tide. So next time, when you walk along a river, know that this river is the bedrock of this city. Stay curious. Have you ever noticed that city skylines, from New York to Dubai, always seem to form a pyramid shape? Few towers rise high, many stop midway, and most stay small. But why? Stand on any rooftop, and you'll see it. A universal pyramid, the same shape. In every age, everywhere. Why does this architectural pattern persist across diverse cultures and economies? The origins of this pyramid geometry trace back to 2630 BCE with Egypt's step pyramid. It wasn't just a tomb. It was an equation of hierarchy, where thousands lifted stones so one man could touch the sky. This ancient geometry has subtly endured for millennia. The big idea is this: we build vertically to measure value. Counterintuitively, every skyline is a financial X-ray, not merely a feat of design. It reveals the underlying economic structure of a city. The mechanism is simple. Urban height directly follows money density. Land in the city center costs exponentially more, so the only way to multiply space is to build up. But as cost rises, returns flatten, forcing a taper, creating what economists call the floor area pyramid. Consider New York's Midtown zoning in 1916, which literally sculpted the skyline with stepbacks. Or Shanghai's Lujiazui, which grew spikes after 1990 when GDP tripled. Even Dubai's Burj Khalifa, the tallest on Earth, is surrounded by smaller piers, forming its base like worshippers facing a minaret. The reveal is clear. Height mirrors hierarchy. When wealth concentrates, skylines sharpen, as seen in post-Soviet Moscow's jagged rise from privatization. Conversely, when wealth spreads, skylines flatten, like post-war Tokyo's low sprawl due to rent controls. Architecture, truly, is economics wearing glass. Today, climate codes limit height by carbon cost, and data centers sprawl sideways, not upward. Yet the symbolic pyramid persists, migrating from stone to structure, to screen in corporate org charts, app stores, and influencer tiers. Every city's skyline bends into a pyramid because inequality itself has an architecture. We may dream of leveling skylines, but as long as ambition stacks, geometry will remember who paid more for the view. Next in our series, why do deserts make disciplined people? Why does the universe have a speed limit? And why do we crave meaning more than truth? Stay observant and keep looking up. How Europe fell behind its own EV goals. Europe's electric vehicle revolution is facing a severe shortage of charging infrastructure. Highways across Europe are filling with electric cars, but the crucial infrastructure to support them is lagging, creating a charging crisis. Europe aimed for 3.5 million chargers by 2030, a goal that seems increasingly distant, with only about 900,000 existing today. This means barely 1 in 4 chargers are in place, just 5 years before the deadline. The ambitious target is far from being met. While Europe leads in climate pledges, many drivers still experience, quote, range anxiety in kilometers, lacking confidence in finding a charging point. The distribution is stark. Western Europe boasts numerous charging hubs, while Central and Eastern Europe have sparse networks, with drivers in some areas traveling 40 kilometers to find a single public charger. The fundamental issue isn't technological advancement, but timing. Building the electrical grid to support rapid EV expansion is a slow and complex process. While EV manufacturing is fast and efficient, developing the necessary grid infrastructure, securing permits, and installing transformers takes considerable time and effort. Bureaucracy, land rights, and energy network limits add months to the process. Even existing chargers can be slow, unreliable, or inconsistently priced. This disparity creates behavioral distortions. Urban drivers plug in daily, while rural drivers hesitate to switch, leading private companies to focus on profitable city installations, leaving highways and villages underserved. Ultimately, this isn't just about electricity, but trust. Governments fostered confidence in combustion engines by making fuel omnipresent. Until EV charging offers similar certainty, adoption will stagnate. Some nations are making progress, with Germany adding about 60,000 chargers annually, France 50,000, and the Netherlands leading per capita. However, Europe needs 500,000 new chargers every year to meet its 2030 promise. The next 5 years will be critical in determining whether Europe's green revolution is seen as leadership or a lag. The cars and people are ready, but the infrastructure isn't. Why does complexity always collapse? Let's dive into hidden patterns and uncover the profound truth. In 1177 BCE, great Bronze Age cities like Mycenae and Troy vanished within a single human lifetime. What caused this mysterious disappearance? Archaeologists once blamed invaders, but now they speak of networks. Trade routes, taxes, and dependencies so tight that one small issue could snap the entire chain. The stronger the web, the more brittle the silk. While interconnectedness brings strength, it also introduces fragility. One failure can become contagious. When each part of a complex system relies on all others to survive, a single failure can cascade into widespread collapse. The big idea is that complexity is intelligence without humility. It's the counterintuitive notion that systems collapse not because they fail, but because they succeed too well. It's a paradox. Systems that become too optimized, too successful, inherently create conditions for their own downfall. Every organism, company, or civilization adds layers to solve problems. Laws, departments, algorithms. Each layer works at first, but then demands maintenance and oversight. This mechanism leads to what economists call diminishing returns to complexity. It's the point where the effort put in multiplies, but the benefit plateaus. More layers mean more administration, more rules, and more energy spent on feeding the system rather than innovating. Joseph Tainter's study of the Roman Empire's tax system, the NASA Challenger investigation, and overconnected ecological food webs all show this pattern in action. The reveal sharpens when we realize that complexity creates blindness. When everything is optimized, no one truly sees the whole picture. Each part might be optimized, but the intricate web of dependencies means small errors can hide until they synchronize into catastrophic failure. Tiny errors, unnoticed in isolation, can combine and amplify into a blackout, a crash, or even the fall of empires. So what does this mean today? Modern life runs on the same logic: global supply chains, financial derivatives, and code layered on code. These modern complex systems are susceptible to the same vulnerabilities that caused ancient civilizations to collapse. Resilience now depends not on adding more features, but on subtracting fragility. This means simpler rules, modular design, and slack instead of strain. The art of survival may be learning when to stop improving. Endurance belongs to what bends, not what perfects. Stay curious, and remember, every masterpiece endures only by knowing what not to complicate.